The Volari warship Starweaver limped through the darkness of unknown space, its hull scarred by plasma burns and kinetic impacts. Admiral Naira Telvana gripped her command chair as another tremor shook the bridge. Through the main view screen, she watched the unfamiliar star patterns of this unexplored sector, hoping desperately that their blind jump had carried them far enough from their pursuers. "Damage report," she ordered, her silver eyes scanning the holographic displays surrounding her station. The readings weren't promising. Main reactor at 31% capacity, shield generators offline, and we've lost contact with decks 12 through 15, her first officer, Kale, reported grimly. The civilian ships in our convoy are in even worse condition. Naira closed her eyes briefly, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Behind the Starweaver, 37 vessels carried what remained of their civilization, barely 100,000 survivors of the Crixian Empire's relentless expansion. The Volari, once proud masters of quantum engineering, had been reduced to refugees in their own galaxy. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice cut through her thoughts. Multiple contacts detected at the edge of the system's habitable zone. Unknown configuration. Naira's heart skipped a beat. Had the Crixians somehow tracked them? But as the sensor data streamed across her displays, she realized these ships were unlike anything she'd seen before. Their design was almost crude by Volari standards, all sharp angles and exposed weapon mounts, lacking the elegant biomechanical integration of most spacefaring races. "They're hailing us," communications reported, surprise evident in their voice. "The signal is primitive. Simple electromagnetic waves. Put them through," Naira commanded, straightening in her chair despite her exhaustion. The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made several bridge officers gasp audibly. The alien commander was bipedal, with pale skin and dark hair. Their bridge appeared startlingly utilitarian, all metal and plastic rather than the living crystal technology the Volari favored. But what struck Naira most was their expression, a mix of curiosity and concern that seemed startlingly familiar. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Hyperion. We detected your ship's damage signatures. Do you require assistance?" Before Naira could respond, her tactical officer shouted, "Spatial rupture detected. Multiple Crixian warships emerging." The massive forms of Crixian dreadnoughts tore through spacetime, their biological hulls writhing as they oriented toward the Volari fleet. Their weapon ports glowed with charged plasma, ready to finish what they'd started in the home system. "Volari vessel, this is Captain Chen. We're reading multiple hostile contacts. Please confirm, are you under attack?" Naira made a split-second decision. "Captain Chen, I am Admiral Naira Telvani of the Volari refugee fleet. We are indeed under attack by the Crixian Empire. They have already destroyed our homeworld. I have 37 ships full of civilians who will die if we can't dash." "Say no more, Admiral," Chen interrupted, her expression hardening. "Hyperion Battle Group, this is the captain. Combat stations. These people asked for help, and we're going to give it to them." To Naira's astonishment, more human ships decloaked around them, vessels that her sensors hadn't even detected. They were smaller than the Crixian dreadnoughts, but they moved with purpose, forming a defensive screen around the Volari fleet. "Admiral Telvani, please move your civilian ships behind our formation," Chen ordered. "We'll handle this." "Captain, the Crixians have biotechnology far beyond Dash," Naira began, but her warning was cut short by the sight unfolding before her. The human ships opened fire, but not with the expected energy weapons. Instead, they launched what appeared to be solid metal projectiles, crude by any galactic standard. The Crixian commanders apparently thought the same, not even bothering to adjust their shields for such primitive weapons. That was their first mistake. The projectiles, traveling at appreciable fractions of light speed, tore through the Crixians' energy shields as if they weren't there. Their biomechanical hulls, optimized to resist energy weapons, provided little protection against the kinetic impacts. The first dreadnought's hull split open like ripe fruit, atmosphere and crew venting into space. "Impossible," Kale whispered beside her. "Their weapons, they're just throwing rocks." Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Chen's voice came through the calm, a hint of satisfaction evident. Admiral Telvanni, we're going to need information about these Crictions. But first, let's make sure your people are safe. Welcome to Earth space. Naira watched in amazement as the human ships danced through space, their seemingly primitive weapons wreaking havoc on the technologically superior Crixian fleet. Perhaps, she thought, there was hope for her people after all. Sometimes salvation comes not from advanced technology, but from those who remember the fundamental principles of warfare and aren't afraid to use them. The battle that followed would be remembered as humanity's introduction to galactic politics. It wouldn't be the last time the galaxy underestimated these newcomers who combined simple solutions with devastating effectiveness. The Volari had found not just allies, but a species that would change the very nature of interstellar warfare. For the first time since the fall of their homeworld, Admiral Telvanni allowed herself to smile. The Crictions had learned a harsh lesson today. Sometimes the most dangerous opponents are those who think differently, not those who think bigger. The United Earth Defense Force headquarters buzzed with activity. Inside the primary strategic command center, holographic displays showed the positions of both human and Volari ships across Earth's solar system. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the assembled military leadership, her presentation reaching its conclusion. The Volari refugees represent an unprecedented opportunity, she stated, gesturing to the technical specifications floating beside her. Their quantum engineering capabilities far exceed our own, while our kinetic weapon systems proved remarkably effective against Crixian defenses. A technological exchange could benefit both societies. Admiral James Harrison, the grizzled veteran who headed the UEDF, leaned forward in his chair. "And you're certain these Crictions will return?" Without question, a melodic voice answered. Admiral Naira Telvanni stepped forward, her silvery skin catching the light from the holographic displays. "The Crixian Empire doesn't tolerate failure. They'll return with a larger fleet, better prepared for your weapons." The human officers exchanged glances. They had all reviewed the footage from the initial battle, seen the devastating effectiveness of their rail guns against Crixian bioships. But they'd also seen the incredible technological gap between human ships and both alien species. "What I don't understand," General Maria Santos interjected, "is how a civilization as advanced as yours couldn't defend against the Crictions." "No offense intended, Admiral Telvanni." Naira's expression shifted to what humans had learned was a Volari smile. "None taken, General. The answer lies in our very advancement. The Volari have relied on energy weapons and quantum shields for so long, we forgot the fundamentals. We became predictable. The Crictions evolved their biotechnology specifically to counter such attacks. But you never thought to just throw a rock at them really fast?" Lieutenant Commander Jack O'Neill quipped from his seat, earning several sharp looks and a few poorly hidden smiles. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are hidden by layers of complexity," Naira responded thoughtfully. "This is why we believe an alliance with humanity could change the course of this war." "You think differently." Admiral Harrison stood, his decision apparently made. "Captain Chin, you'll lead the Joint Tactical Development Team. Work with the Volari to integrate our technologies. I want options when the Crictions return." The next few weeks saw unprecedented cooperation between humans and Volari. In orbital shipyards around Earth and Mars, engineers from both species worked to create hybrid vessels combining Volari quantum technology with human weapon systems. But the exchange went far beyond military matters. Sarah found herself spending considerable time with Naira, learning about Volari culture while sharing human history. One evening, they stood in the observation dome of the orbital station Unity, watching Earth rotate below. "Your species is fascinating," Naira remarked, her silver eyes reflecting the blue marble of Earth. "You achieved spaceflight despite lacking any natural affinity for quantum mechanics. You developed artificial gravity through centrifugal force rather than field manipulation. Every solution you devise seems to involve working around your limitations rather than trying to overcome them directly." Sarah smiled. "Humans have always been good at finding shortcuts. We call it working smarter, not harder. Speaking of which, our engineers have an idea about your shield problem." She pulled up a holographic display showing a modified Volari shield system. Instead of trying to block the Crixion's bioplasma weapons, we suggest using the shields to redirect the energy, like a martial artist using an opponent's strength against them. Naira studied the display, her expression brightening. This could work. Combined with your kinetic weapons, yes, we could catch them completely off guard. Their conversation was interrupted by a priority alert. Admiral Harrison's voice filled the chamber. All command staff report to strategic operations immediately. In the command center, the news was grim. Long-range sensors had detected a massive Crixian fleet assembling at the edge of human space. This force dwarfed the previous encounter, with over 200 bioships, including several vessels larger than anything seen before. They'll reach Earth in 72 hours, Harrison announced to the silent room. The question is, are we ready? Sarah exchanged glances with Naira before stepping forward. Sir, we've been running combat simulations with the modified ships. The results are promising, but we haven't had time to upgrade more than 30% of our combined fleet. What about the civilian evacuations? General Santos asked. The Volari refugees have been relocated to our lunar and Martian colonies, Naira reported. But we cannot run again. Earth is our last stand. Harrison nodded grimly. Then we make it count. Captain Chin, Admiral Telvanni, present your battle plan. The two commanders moved to the tactical display, their months of collaboration evident in how smoothly they worked together. As they laid out their strategy, even the veteran officers looked impressed by its audacity. It's insane, O'Neill commented when they finished. Using our own sun as a weapon? Converting asteroid mines into giant railguns? The Crixians will never expect it. Exactly, Sarah replied. They think they know what they're facing, a primitive species helping a defeated one. They're expecting a conventional battle. But we will show them, Naira added, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had already lost one home, that conventional thinking is what lost us the last war. This time, we fight with human ingenuity. As the command staff dispersed to begin preparations, Sarah caught Naira looking again at the image of Earth. Beautiful, isn't it? She asked. Yes, Naira replied softly. It reminds me of home. The Crixians took that from us. We won't let them take this world too. The next 72 hours would test that resolve to its limits. But as Sarah watched humans and Volari working side by side, preparing for the battle of their lives, she felt a surge of hope. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from superior technology or numbers, but from the ability to see problems from a new perspective. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding new ways to solve old problems. The battle began at dawn, Earth time. The Crixian fleet emerged from quantum space in a horrifying display of biomechanical might. Their ships, now clearly visible to Earth's defenders, resembled massive sea creatures wrought in living metal, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. At their center, a behemoth dreadnought nearly the size of Manhattan dominated the formation. Well, that's certainly compensating for something, Lieutenant Commander O'Neill muttered from his station aboard the modified destroyer Thermopylae. Captain Chin, commanding from the bridge of the upgraded Hyperion, kept her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The combined human Volari fleet looked painfully small in comparison to the Crixian armada. But size wasn't everything. All ships, maintain formation, she ordered. Remember your training. Wait for them to commit. The Crixian response came as a wall of bioplasma, their weapons turning space itself into an ocean of deadly energy. But instead of attempting to block the assault, the defenders' shields twisted, redirecting the energy in precise patterns that created a cascade of interference. Now, Sarah barked. Execute Operation Slingshot. Hidden railgun platforms, built into captured asteroids, activated simultaneously. Hypervelocity rounds streaked across space, their simple kinetic energy multiplied by quantum field enhancers of Volari design. The first wave caught the Crixian vanguard completely off guard, their ships rupturing in spectacular fashion. But the Crixians hadn't come unprepared this time. Their rear ships deployed what looked like massive organic nets, catching and absorbing the kinetic projectiles. They had adapted. Admiral Telvanni, Sarah called over the command channel. They've countered our primary strategy. Moving to contingency beta. Acknowledged. Naira's voice came back, tense but controlled. All Volari ships, prepare quantum fold maneuvers. The space around the defending fleet began to ripple as Volari quantum drives activated in precise synchronization. The human vessels, nestled within the quantum fields, felt reality twist around them. The Crixian commander, apparently believing this was a retreat, ordered an all-out assault. Their massive dreadnought surged forward, its weapon ports glowing with charged energy. That's when the defenders sprung their trap. The quantum fields didn't transport the Allied fleet away. Instead, they created localized pockets of altered spacetime. As the Crixian weapons fired, their energy beams curved impossibly, many striking their own ships. The massive dreadnought's forward section erupted in green fire as its own plasma torpedoes detonated against its hull. For a moment, it seemed like the bold strategy had worked. But then something went wrong. The quantum fields began to destabilize, the careful calculations disrupted by an unexpected factor. Horror dawned on Naira's face as she realized what was happening. The Crixians, she transmitted urgently, they're generating some kind of bioquantum interference. Our fields are collapsing. Sarah watched in dismay as the carefully coordinated defense began to unravel. Without the quantum fields to redirect energy, the human Volari fleet was exposed to the full fury of the Crixian assault. The destroyer Thermopylae was the first to fall, its hybrid shields overloading under sustained fire. O'Neill's last transmission was cut short as his ship broke apart. 3 Volari cruisers followed, their quantum cores going critical in brief, brilliant flashes. All ships, emergency withdrawal. Sarah ordered, even as another explosion rocked the Hyperion. Fall back to the lunar defense line. But retreat wasn't so simple. The Crixians pressed their advantage, their bioships moving with predatory grace to cut off escape routes. A third of the Allied fleet was lost in the chaotic withdrawal. Hours later, in the emergency command center beneath the lunar surface, the survivors assessed their situation. The holographic display showed the grim reality. The Crixians had established a blockade around Earth, their ships forming an impenetrable net. We underestimated them, Naira said quietly, her silver skin dulled with exhaustion. They found a way to disrupt our quantum technologies. Without that advantage. We're not done yet, Sarah interrupted, though her voice was hoarse from shouting orders during the retreat. Human history is full of victories that came after devastating defeats. We just need to think differently. She moved to the tactical display, studying the Crixian formation. Something about their ship's behavior had caught her attention during the battle, a pattern she couldn't quite place. Admiral Telvanni, she said slowly, you mentioned that the Crixians use biotechnology. How do their ships communicate with each other? Naira blinked in surprise. Through neural networks, similar to organic synapses. Why? A small smile crossed Sarah's face. Because every nervous system, no matter how advanced, can be overloaded. She turned to the assembled officers. Get me everything we have on electromagnetic pulse weapons. And I need to speak with the lunar colony's chief botanist. Botanist? Harrison questioned. Captain, this isn't the time for gardening. With respect, Admiral, that's exactly what it's time for. The Crixians think they've beaten us with biology. Let's show them that humans understand biology too, just not in the way they expect. As she laid out her plan, even the most skeptical officers began to look hopeful. It was desperate, probably insane, but it just might work. And really, wasn't that humanity's specialty? We'll only get one shot at this, Harrison warned. Sarah nodded grimly. One shot is all we need. But first, we need to get a message to every ship in the fleet, both human and Volari. It's time to show the Crixians why you should never corner a species that evolved as persistence hunters. The next phase of the battle would decide not just Earth's fate, but perhaps the future of the galaxy itself. And it would begin with a lesson in basic Earth botany. Deep in the lunar laboratories, Sarah Chin watched as Dr. Maya Patel carefully manipulated a sample under a quantum microscope. The plant specimen, a modified strain of Dendrochnide moroides, the Australian gimpy plant, floated in a containment field. "Nastiest plant on Earth," Dr. Patel explained, her fingers dancing over the controls. Its stinging hairs contain a neurotoxin so potent that horses have been known to throw themselves off cliffs from the pain. "We've modified it to produce spores that target biomechanical neural pathways." "And you're certain it will affect the Crixian ships?" Naira asked, her silver eyes fixed on the floating specimen. "Their ships are partly biological," Maya replied. "Based on the scan data you provided, their neural networks should be susceptible. We just need to get the spores inside their hulls." Sarah nodded, her mind already running through the tactical implications. "That's where Operation Thunderstrike comes in. Admiral Harrison has authorized the use of our last resort weapon." The weapon in question was the UEDF's closely guarded secret, a massive electromagnetic pulse generator built into the dark side of the moon. Originally designed as a defensive measure against solar flares, it had never been tested at full power. "The EMP will create gaps in their bioshields," Sarah continued. "That's when we launched the delivery systems." Those delivery systems were perhaps the most audacious part of the plan. Every remaining ship in the human Volari fleet was being fitted with specially designed missiles. Instead of warheads, they carried pressurized chambers of modified Gimpy spores. In the hours that followed, preparations reached fever pitch. The remaining fleet gathered in the moon's shadow, hidden from Crixian sensors. Engineers worked frantically to integrate the biological payload with their delivery systems, while Volari scientists added quantum field generators to enhance the EMP's effects. Admiral Harrison called one final briefing before the operation began. "This is a one-way mission," he stated bluntly. "Once we initiate the pulse, every electronic system within range will be affected. Our ships will be running on minimal backup power. If this doesn't work—" "It will work," Sarah interrupted. "The Crixians think they've evolved beyond biological vulnerabilities. We're going to remind them that nature always finds a way." As the fleet moved into position, Sarah found herself on the Hyperion's bridge, running final checks on their modified systems. Naira's ship, the Star Weaver, maintained position alongside. "Captain Chin," Naira's voice came over the comm. "I wanted to say, regardless of what happens, the Volari will never forget what Earth has done for us." "Save the speeches for after we win," Sarah replied with a smile. "All ships, final positions. Prepare for electromagnetic pulse in 5 minutes." The seconds ticked by with excruciating slowness. On the tactical display, the Crixian blockade hung in high orbit around Earth, their bioships pulsing with eerie light. "EMP charging," the Lunar Control Center reported. "Quantum field generators online. All ships, switch to backup systems, now." A moment of darkness swept across the fleet as their main systems powered down. Then, silently in the vacuum of space, the largest electromagnetic pulse in human history erupted from the lunar surface. The effect on the Crixian fleet was immediate and spectacular. Their bioships convulsed, their neural networks temporarily scrambled by the massive energy surge. Gaps appeared in their formation as shield systems failed. "Launch missiles," Sarah ordered. "All ships, fire at designated targets." Thousands of missiles streaked across space, their conventional propulsion systems barely affected by the lingering electromagnetic interference. The Crixians, their systems still reeling from the pulse, couldn't coordinate an effective defense. The missiles detonated in clouds of invisible spores, each particle carrying a payload of modified neurotoxins. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the first Crixian ship began to spasm. "It's working," Dr. Patel reported from her monitoring station. "The spores are penetrating their neural pathways. Their ships are experiencing the equivalent of severe allergic reactions." Across the battlefield, Crixian vessels began to lose coherence. Their biomechanical systems, supersensitive to neural input, went into overdrive. Some ships literally tore themselves apart as conflicting signals ravaged their neural networks. The massive dreadnought at the center of their fleet proved more resistant, its thicker hull protecting its vital systems. But even it showed signs of distress, its weapon ports firing randomly into space. "All ships with functioning engines," Sarah commanded, "target the dreadnought. Conventional weapons only. Let's finish this." The combined fleet surged forward, their railguns and energy weapons striking the wounded Leviathan from multiple angles. Without its coordinated shield network, the massive ship couldn't defend itself effectively. When the dreadnought finally broke apart, its destruction seemed to signal something to the remaining Crixian ships. Those that could still maneuver began to retreat, their movements erratic and uncoordinated. "They're running," O'Neill's replacement reported, unable to keep the amazement from his voice. "The Crixians are actually running." A cheer went up across the fleet's communication channels. But Sarah kept her attention on the tactical display, watching as the enemy fleet fled into quantum space. "Begin recovery operations," she ordered. "I want samples from those destroyed ships. And get me a damage assessment of our own fleet." As the adrenaline of battle faded, the true cost became clear. Nearly half of the remaining human Volari fleet had been destroyed or disabled. Earth's orbit was littered with debris from both sides. But they had won. Humanity had faced its first major interstellar threat and emerged victorious, not through overwhelming force or superior technology, but through innovative thinking and the creative use of Earth's own natural defenses. Hours later, Sarah stood in the observation dome of Unity Station once again, watching cleanup crews begin their work in orbit. Naira joined her, carrying 2 containers. "Your people call this coffee," the Volari admiral said, offering one to Sarah. "I've developed quite a taste for it." Sarah accepted the drink with a tired smile. "We did it. Though I doubt the Crixians will stay away forever." "No," Naira agreed, "but they'll think twice before underestimating humanity again. And next time, they'll face a stronger alliance." 3 months after Operation Thunderstrike, the mood in Earth's orbital installations had shifted from celebration to watchful vigilance. The reconstruction efforts were well underway, with human and Volari engineers working side by side to rebuild their damaged fleet. But beneath the surface of this cooperation, something wasn't quite right. Captain Sarachin noticed it first in the small things. Crucial communications delayed by minutes or hours. Supply shipments arriving with slight discrepancies in their manifests. Minor system glitches in the quantum core prototypes being developed for the new hybrid vessels. "It's too systematic to be random," she explained to Admiral Harrison during a secure briefing. "These aren't normal inefficiencies, they're deliberate sabotage." Harrison's weathered face grew grimmer as he reviewed her evidence. "You think we have infiltrators?" "The Crixians are bioengineers," Sarah pointed out. "What if they found a way to disguise themselves as either humans or Volari?" The implications were staggering. If the Crixians had indeed managed to plant sleeper agents within Earth's defense infrastructure, the entire alliance could be compromised. Admiral Telvanni, when brought into the investigation, provided crucial insight. "Their biotechnology is advanced enough to alter physical appearance," she confirmed. "But there might be a way to detect them. Every living thing has a quantum signature, even artificially modified organisms." The hunt began in secret. Sarah assembled a small team of trusted officers, including Dr. Patel, whose expertise with bioscanning technology proved invaluable. They modified medical scanners to detect the subtle quantum variations that might betray a Crixian infiltrator. But the infiltrators struck before they could implement widespread screening. The first explosion rocked Unity Station during shift change, destroying a crucial power relay. As emergency teams responded, 2 more detonations followed in quick succession, targeting the station's quantum communication array and life support systems. Sarah was in the botanical research lab with Dr. Patel when the attacks began. They were reviewing data from their modified scanner when the deck lurched beneath their feet. "Multiple explosions detected," the station's AI announced. "Emergency protocols initiated. All personnel report to designated safety zones." "Maya," Sarah grabbed the scientist's arm, "we need to get to the command center. Bring the scanner." They were halfway there when they encountered the first infiltrator. It looked like a human technician, but its movements were wrong. Too fluid, too precise. The scanner in Maya's hands began beeping frantically. The infiltrator turned, its human features melting away to reveal something alien and terrible. But Sarah was already moving, her combat training taking over. A quick burst from her sidearm caught the creature in its midsection, causing it to collapse in a heap of rapidly deteriorating biomatter. Well, Maya said shakily, I guess the scanner works. Throughout the station, similar scenes were playing out. The infiltrators, realizing they had been discovered, abandoned their disguises and launched an all-out assault. Some appeared human, others Valari, but all reverted to their true forms when confronted. In the chaos, Sarah and Maya fought their way to the command center, where they found Admiral Harrison coordinating the defense. Several security officers lay dead outside the doors, their bodies showing signs of biochemical weapons. Captain, Harrison acknowledged grimly, please tell me you have good news. The scanner works, Sarah reported, helping Maya set up her equipment. We can detect them. But we need to get this information to every installation in the system. Slight problem with that, Harrison gestured to the communications console. They've knocked out our quantum comm array. We're limited to light-speed communications. Sarah studied the tactical display, watching as reports of infiltrators came in from across the station. Then her eyes fell on the botanical research data still displayed on Maya's tablet. What if we don't need the quantum array? She mused. Maya, the modified Gimpy spores, they're still engineered to target Crixian neural pathways, right? The scientist nodded slowly, then her eyes widened as she caught Sarah's meaning. We could use the station's air filtration system to distribute them. The spores would only affect the infiltrators. But we'd be effectively poisoning our own air supply, Harrison pointed out. No, Maya corrected, already working on her tablet. I can modify the spores to break down after a few hours. We'll need to wear breathers until then, but it's better than fighting these things hand-to-hand. Harrison gave a short nod. Do it. I'll order all human and Valari personnel to use emergency breathing apparatus. The next hour was a nightmare of close-quarter combat and desperate holding actions as Maya worked to modify the spores. Infiltrators tried repeatedly to breach the command center, but the combined efforts of human and Valari security teams kept them at bay. Finally, Maya announced she was ready. Sarah helped her connect the delivery system to the station's air handlers, then gave the order for all allied personnel to don breathing gear. The effect was dramatic. Within minutes of releasing the spores, infiltrators throughout the station began to convulse and revert to their true forms. Security teams, now able to easily identify their enemies, moved systematically to eliminate the threat. But the victory came at a cost. The infiltrators had managed to destroy crucial research data and damage vital systems. Worse, they had transmitted something just before the attack began, a burst of quantum data aimed toward the outer system. They were gathering intelligence, Naira concluded during the emergency meeting that followed. Everything we've developed since Thunderstrike, our defenses, our hybrid technologies, our tactics. The Crixians know it all now. Then we'll have to come up with something new, Sarah stated firmly. Something they won't expect. Again, Harrison nodded grimly. Agreed. But first, we need to make sure we've rooted out all their agents. Captain Chin, coordinate with Admiral Telvanna. I want every facility in the system screened. As the meeting broke up, Sarah found herself looking out at Earth through one of the station's few undamaged viewports. The infiltrators had shaken their sense of security, but they had also proven something important. Even in disguise, the enemy couldn't truly understand or replicate what made humans and their allies strong. The real test would come when the Crixians returned, and Sarah knew they would return, this time with full knowledge of humanity's capabilities. The next battle would decide everything. The quantum sensors detected the Crixian fleets approach 2 weeks after the infiltrator crisis. This time, they came not in hundreds but in thousands, a vast armada of bioships that stretched across space like a living constellation. Sarah Chin stood on the bridge of the Hyperion II, a new hybrid vessel that represented everything humans and Valari had learned from each other. Around Earth, Mars, and throughout the asteroid belt, the combined fleet waited in carefully planned formations. They're not trying to hide their numbers, Naira observed from her position aboard the rebuilt Starweaver. This is meant to intimidate us. Let them try, Sarah replied, reviewing the final deployment orders. The defenders had spent every moment since the infiltrator attack preparing for this. Their plan was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. Admiral Harrison's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is command. The enemy will enter weapons range in 30 minutes. Remember your training. Remember Earth. Remember Valari. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for the right to determine our own future. Sarah watched as final preparations were made across the fleet. Unlike their previous encounters, they weren't waiting for the Crixans to make the first move. This time, humanity would show the galaxy why they should never be underestimated. Launch the solar probes, she ordered. Across the fleet, hundreds of small, unmanned craft rocketed toward the sun. Each carried a modified version of Valari quantum technology, designed not to create shields or weapons, but to do something far more ambitious. The Crixian fleet approached methodically, their formation suggesting they expected another trick like Operation Thunderstrike. Their bioships had been modified, their neural networks hardened against both electromagnetic pulses and biological attacks. But humanity had moved beyond such simple tactics. Solar probes in position, tactical reported. Quantum field generators at full power. Sarah took a deep breath. Everything hinged on this moment. Initialize the Prometheus protocol. Around the sun, the probes activated simultaneously. Their quantum fields reached out, not to bend space or redirect energy, but to temporarily alter the fundamental forces within a precisely calculated region of space. For a brief moment, a small portion of the sun's photosphere became slightly more energetic than normal physics should allow. The result was spectacular. A massive solar flare erupted, far larger than any naturally occurring event. But this was no random eruption. The quantum fields shaped it, contained it, directed it. The Crixian fleet had only moments to realize what was happening before the artificial solar flare engulfed their formation. Their bioships, designed to resist conventional weapons, had no defense against the raw power of a star. But the defenders weren't finished. As the flare subsided, leaving the Crixian fleet in disarray, the combined human-Valari force attacked. Ships emerged from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt, their weapons modified with technologies that had been kept secret even from the infiltrators. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta, Sarah commanded. Show them what we've learned. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. Human ingenuity combined with Valari precision, creating tactics that defied conventional space warfare doctrine. Ships danced through the chaos of combat, using asteroids as cover and improvised weapons. The Crixans fought back with desperate fury, their remaining ships launching wave after wave of attacks. But they were fighting an enemy that had evolved beyond their understanding, an alliance that combined the best of both species. Hours into the battle, alarms blared across the Hyperion 2's bridge. Multiple quantum signatures detected, sensors reported. They're bringing in reinforcements. But Sarah smiled. This, too, had been anticipated. Signal the Mars defense grid. Execute Operation Lazarus. Across the red planet's surface, massive cannons emerged from hidden bunkers. But they didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they launched thousands of pods containing the seeds of humanity's survival, self-replicating nanobots based on Valari quantum technology and human viral research. The nanobots swarmed through space, infecting the Crixian bioship's neural networks. Unlike the previous biological attack, these weren't designed to destroy, they rewrote. Across the battlefield, Crixian vessels began to turn on each other, their biological components revolting against their masters. The mighty empire that had terrorized the galaxy found itself being undone by the very technology they had relied upon. Signal from the Crixian flagship, communications announced. There, requesting terms of surrender. A hush fell over the bridge. Sarah exchanged looks with Naira through the video link. This wasn't just victory. This was revolution. Tell them, Sarah said quietly, that their surrender will be accepted only if they agree to face justice for their crimes against all species they've terrorized. The galaxy will no longer bow to their biological tyranny. The price of victory was high. Many ships and crews had been lost in the battle. Earth's orbital infrastructure would take years to rebuild. But humanity and the Volari had proven something extraordinary, that cooperation between species could overcome any obstacle. In the years that followed, Earth became a beacon of hope in the galaxy. The alliance between humans and Volari grew stronger, and other species began to look to them for protection and guidance. Sarah Chin would later write in her memoirs, "The Crictians thought they could break us by exploiting our differences. Instead, those very differences became our greatest strength. They taught us that the true measure of civilization isn't in the power of its weapons, but in its ability to grow, adapt, and work together for the common good." The stars had witnessed humanity's first major galactic war. They had not found humanity wanting.